Major mask down moment for Trump. I do not understand how any person can pretend that it's not. You could say, I don't want to support American companies. There would be no problem. But Israel? Yeah, no, they're coming in now. They're saying you can't do that.
So recently, Candace Owens lashed out at Trump, calling his recent decision regarding federal disaster relief a complete mask down moment. She gets into why the Israel first mentality is corrupting the soul of this government and of this president, and why this has tragic ramifications for not only Americans, but also the Trump administration if changes don't take place. So let's get her take on this. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel.
And I have said Trump is very clearly high on Israel. This is like now become a drug that is ruining his life and it's ruining his legacy. And it just seems that he can't do anything. It's rendered him completely impotent. Israel has rendered him impotent, as it has done many of our politicians. But this is definitively a bridge too far. People are referring to this as treason, and that would, I think, be the accurate term to describe what is happening here. He is going to deny Americans in need disaster funding if he finds out that that city or state that is in need is boycotting Israel. Okay, so we're talking about $1.9 billion in state disaster funds that could potentially be denied if you are a U.S. state or a city that is boycotting Israeli companies. You're just going to be denied federal aid for a natural disaster. Okay, this is for natural disaster preparedness. Obviously, there's money that comes down from FEMA, and that is what is happening. The Federal Emergency Management Agency just stated in a grant notice that was posted on Friday that states have to follow terms and conditions to receive federal funding. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, sure. Maybe you're going to say the rule here is that you can't be housing migrants, right? Housing illegals. You can't be doing something that flies in the face of the federal government. That would make sense. But to say specifically that you can't decide that you're not going to maybe invest in Israeli companies or Israeli technology. This has nothing to do with our company. It's our country. It's an Israeli company. And you might say as a state that we're not going to spend money working with Israel because they're committing a genocide in broad daylight.
Exactly. This is so ludicrous in so many ways. It's not as if Trump's making this decision on behalf of criticism towards certain American states, like, say, states in which Trump is even popular in, like Texas or Florida. No, you can criticize those states endlessly, and we've seen that. That's part of the culture war. There's been major, widespread boycotts on both sides of the political aisles against certain states for various policies. Maybe California for their immigration policies, maybe Texas for their abortion laws, things like that. There are these big, wide-scale movements to boycott specific American states. And that's just fine. That never enters into the equation regarding these things. But if you boycott Israel, then all bets are off. Everything's withheld. And this is totally in line with the Israel first mentality as it pertains to Trump's targeted deportations, not mass deportations like he talked about. He targeted people like Mahmoud Khalil, which dared to stand up against the genocide in Israel, and for that, despite being a legal resident here with an incoming child, they tried to deport him. So yeah, this is criminal, this is absurd, and I'm not a big fan of federal disaster relief from the get-go. I think it's rife with corruption, and those things could be handled much easier locally and privately. I think Hurricane Katrina proves that more than anything. But at the same time, this is very selective application of criteria. So Candace is right.
You might say, actually, morally, we think it is wrong for us to in any way engage with Israel because we are watching them starve children daily. Okay? No one outside of ultra-Zionist psychopaths is denying that that's happening anymore. Even people that took forever to get on board and say it was genocide are now saying, okay, yeah, it looks like they may be committing a genocide and they're just going to take over Gaza and turn it into a beach town, okay?
And by the way, Netanyahu has officially announced today that they are doing that a decision has been made not only to annex, but occupy Gaza. So exactly right. And those that dare criticize it now will be left without this kind of aid. It's just so absurd. It's almost unbelievable.
So Trump is setting this requirement. Trump's administration is setting this requirement. And like I said, it applies to at least $1.9 billion of federal aid that states rely on to cover search and rescue equipment, emergency manager salaries. Let's say you get hit by a hurricane, money that is for the backup power systems, among other expenses. And Trump is saying, yeah, no, I hear you. I hear you screaming. I hear that that's a hurricane. And maybe it's wiped away your entire family, your entire house. But do you support Israel? Oh, I'm sorry. Did you boycott Israeli tech? Yeah, we're not going to be able to give you this money. Your family doesn't qualify anymore. And this is building upon what they already said back in April, that boycotting Israel is going to be something that they're willing to punish. And this is not the Trump administration idea, by the way. We have showed you the clip of Bibi Netanyahu saying that years ago, that they are already passing laws in the United States that any person that boycotts Israel is going to suffer. Like, he is on camera saying that years ago. And now the reality is that 34 states have now passed anti-BDS laws. Now, what are BDS laws? It started as a campus movement. People that were saying that within my capacity, I am going to boycott and divest from Israel. That's your right as an American. Okay, if you decide as an American that you don't want to spend your dollars on anything, right? You could say, I want to boycott Monsanto. I'm not going to spend my money on any products or any companies that are in bed with Monsanto. You could say, I want to boycott cereal, right? I've decided that I don't like Kellogg's, and so I'm going to boycott Kellogg's, and I'm going to tell other people that they should. But that is your right as an American.
Yeah, absolutely. I mostly agree with this, and she's exactly right. The only part I'll push back at is when she said this is not Trump's idea. Well, I'm sorry, the talons of AIPAC and the Israel lobby are in Trump. They've long been in Trump, and they've been in Trump since at least his first administration, when he moved the embassy to Jerusalem for the Israel lobby. He basically expanded the war in Syria for the Israel lobby. He signed the Abraham Accords for the Israel lobby. He boasted about how pro-Israel he was for the Israel lobby. Over and over again, even in his first term. We've seen that only expanded in his second term, but Trump's totally complicit with this, and he often boasts about it. He often boasts about how much money he got from Sheldon and Miriam Adelson, and how he never turned down their requests, and how Netanyahu's such a great guy. So yeah, it's not just Netanyahu's idea, it's also that of the Israel lobby and Trump. But on the specifics, she's exactly right. It is your American right to boycott something, and for them to have such selective judgments about how to allocate these funds, it just shows what a plague the Israel first mentality is, especially as the U.S. finances a genocide in Gaza, and you're not allowed to criticize that. You'll just suffer the repercussions. It wasn't enough just to be called an anti-Semite for that. This happens to you as well.
If that's what you want to do, okay? Now, all of a sudden, Trump is taking the extraordinary position that actually it's not your right to do that when it comes to Israel. Of course, you could, if you want today, boycott American companies. You could say, I don't want to support American companies. There would be no problem. But Israel? Yeah, no, they're coming in now. They're saying you can't do that. Why is that? Because America is not a sovereign nation. And if you are under any illusions that America is a sovereign nation, you need to wake up.
Yeah, dude, I'm totally down with what she just said there. And much of Trump's base, especially during the COVID regime, even though Trump was at fault for many of the early steps to give the governors cover for the COVID lockdowns, like invoking the National Emergency Act, the Strafford Act, etc., even though you had lots of conservatives in his base lambasting companies like Pfizer and Moderna for getting in bed with government, I think rightly so, that they blasted these companies for getting in bed with government and selling these things and pushing the vaccine mandates to deprive people of basic rights if they weren't vaccinated. There was no problem in those circles with criticizing these companies. But if it's Israel, no, again, all bets are off. It's just like that meme that you saw when there was the natural disaster in North Carolina. There was a recent one in Texas, and then you had the Palestine, Ohio train wreck or whatever that was where, you had the meme where they'd show a U.S. map, and the only way to direct U.S. aid to those countries, or those states, I should say, is to rename them Ukraine or Israel. That's what you had to do. You had to pretend that you're either Israel or Ukraine to get aid, because the U.S. government cares far more about the integrity of those borders and those countries than they do the United States of America.
And if you are still operating under some delusion, as many of us were in the past, that this has been a relationship born and we are allies because we believe in freedom and democracy, hopefully what is happening in Gaza has woken you up to the fact that that was nothing but propaganda, which began in our classrooms. Okay, they have been propagandizing us in the classrooms. As we get into this Jeffrey Epstein story, for those of you guys that are invested in this series, and we will continue this on Monday, you start to realize that they had an interest in American textbooks. Far be it, if you guys are watching my podcast, if you are falling under the belief that, oh, well, the Rockefellers were controlling the textbooks. Yeah, the Rockefellers got blackmailed by the Mossad, okay?
And also, Robert Maxwell tried to launch a textbook empire. He essentially did. He did launch a media empire that included large-scale production and selling of textbooks. This was the most famous Israeli spy probably in history, served as a mentor of sorts to Epstein. That did, in fact, happen.
That's the truth. Reuven Shiloah, who was the first leader of the Mossad, blackmailed the Rockefellers, okay? And that's how this nation has accrued so much power across the world, through a very systemic process of blackmail. Hence, Trump gaslighting us about Jeffrey Epstein, because everybody is implicated. Okay, these are blackmail rings. This is not a country that is being driven because of their morals. This is a religious country, the home of the Jews. Thou shalt not kill. Anybody? Thou shalt not kill. They are mass murdering women and children every single day. So the question becomes, what was this nation actually built upon? And hopefully you guys are listening to Daryl Cooper's series, speaking about the early movement of Zionism, speaking about the truth about Theodore Herzl. Everything you have been told is a lie.
That's right. In truth, this country was built on a grand land distribution plan by the UN, passed down by globalists at the UN. You have lots of conservatives condemning the UN and the thought of global government, but that is resulting in Israel. Israel is the product of globalism as it pertained to that resolution in 1947 and 1948, where Palestinian land was just transferred through resolution fiat to the Israelis that were there. And she's right. Thou shalt not kill. And then you had this genocide in Gaza that even people that doubled down on it in the past have taken a look at and said, hey, no, maybe there is something to this, too little, too late, maybe in some cases, but I'll take people's change of hearts where I can get it. This is a criminal government, and my government's criminal too for supporting it. So I don't spare any blows toward my own government by pointing out the disaster and malignance that is Netanyahu's government, especially again, as it prepares to occupy Gaza. If you think public opinion is turned against Israel now, just wait until this happens.
Okay. Everything, virtually everything you have been told, whether your pastors are lying to you about it, people are blackmailed and they are lying. But for Trump, this is masked down, okay? He is now rendered an impotent leader. If you would penalize people that are in need, right? If you would harm American citizens so that you can serve Israel's interests, that's an act of treason. Because Israel is no friend to the United States. Israel is the reason that we have all the problems that we have in the Middle East. That's the reality. And it's got...
I wouldn't put it all on Israel, but I'd put a hell of a lot of it on Israel. They've wanted most of our regime change wars. I don't think Afghanistan was the fault of Israel, but the overthrow of Gaddafi, Israel wanted. The overthrow of Saddam, Israel wanted. The overthrow of Assad, Israel wanted. And the overthrow of the Ayatollah in Iran, Israel wanted, and still wants, by the way. But there were complicit actors within the United States, too. So it's not like there wasn't a multinational cabal here at work trying to push these things, but surely it is due in some part to Israel's influence and the Israel lobby. That's obviously true, and it's obviously true because they don't have to register as a foreign lobby like any other country would. Just imagine if there was a Chinese lobby that didn't have to register as a foreign lobby. They'd be immediately called traitors and treasonous and for passing such influence and holding ownership over the voting patterns of our legislators.
Nothing to do with Jewish Americans. So you guys better wake up real quick to what you are being forced to support. Because like I said, they similarly have propagandized Jewish Americans, like I said on Tucker's show. It was a mask down moment when the ADL said that they began that program. Jonathan Greenblatt caught on the hot mic saying that they began the birthright program because they wanted to what? Arbitrarily attach Jewish Americans to this made-up country in the Middle East that believes in democracy but doesn't practice it. Yeah. So major mask down moment for Trump. I do not understand how any person can pretend that it's not. He is telling you he is not America first. I don't even know if he's America second at this point. It's all so ridiculous and disappointing. Just honestly embarrassing. It is so embarrassing. And I'm interested to see what J.D. Vance has to say about this. How could we have so many people that are this fearful to stand up to this nation?
So embarrassing indeed. All the slaughter, all the bloodshed, all the atrocities in Gaza, and that's not even the beginning of it, because we bombed Yemen for a month on behalf of Israel interests because the Houthis were supporting aid to the Palestinians, something they don't want. They went from 400 aid stations in Gaza to only 4. There's a mass starvation campaign. Netanyahu's denying it, but he's just saying, hey, these are isolated incidents. But yeah, we all see the pictures of emaciated babies and young people and women and innocents that aren't part of Hamas. I'm sorry, you can't tell me that babies plucked from rubble are part of Hamas. And you can't say Hamas is at fault for this genocide. October 7th doesn't give an unlimited license for 2+ years of terrorism, which will unfold. I think we're in month, 22 at this point? It's absurd, and the U.S. shouldn't be involved in this whatsoever. I'll give credit to Sagar and Jetty. He put this well on Twitter today. He said that millions of Americans voted against an anti-racism department in the federal government, only to get a pro-Netanyahu department about 8 months later. And I think that's so true. I mean, there's special DEI carve-outs now on the basis of racial heritage, but just for Jews. And this new legislation, I shouldn't say legislation because it was an executive edict, was from Trump on the basis of protesting Israel, a foreign nation, not even part of the United States, despite the fact that they sure act like it is, or the 51st state, and maybe they act like it's the first state in some regards, that you can't get foreign aid for that. But hey, have at it when it comes to California or New York or Massachusetts or any number of states that much of the right doesn't like and much of the Zionist base doesn't like. It's just absurd. And, I'm so glad that there's a lot of dissident Jews speaking out against this and how absurd it is, like Max Blumenthal and Aaron Mate and Dave Smith. And you just really get a load of the nonsense that comes from this criminal government that the U.S. is tied to the hip with. And there are voices waking up on the right to it. I'm super glad to see it from people like Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson and, some of the others I've mentioned. But man, this is going to be bad, and it's only going to get worse once the Gaza occupation occurs, which Benjamin Netanyahu has said the decision has just been made. That just happened within the last hour of recording this video. So I think we're in a world of harm if we continue to give this any kind of moral or financial or military support, because it just slaps Americans back in the face. We have enough domestic problems to worry about. The Middle East should not be America's concern, but it does seem to be more of a concern than domestic issues related to the United States. And no matter what your preference and policy prescriptions for those domestic problems are, I think it's more superior of a path to address those things rather than dumping money into fruitless forever wars, empire building, and financing genocides. It might just be me. I don't know. But let me know down below. Do you agree with Candace Owens? Is she right about this? Is there anything wrong about what she's saying? Is Trump a disappointment to you? Let me know in the comments below. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. Also subscribe to Candace Owens as well. And please consider becoming a YouTube member. If you click the join button below, you'll help support the channel. And in return, I'll give you access to all my videos before they go live on YouTube. And until I see you guys next time, no more war, no more debt, no more inflation, and no more empire. Peace out, guys. Catch you in the next one.